Hey, this is Brian again, and I'd like to ask you to do a favor. We can't do this work without people like you, so if you can, please like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends about Bring Back the Porch.
We're sort of drawing a line that you can earn your way into inclusion, but you can earn your way out of it too. Okay. Earn your way out of inclusion. Now, what does that mean?
This episode of Bring Back the Porch brought to you by Bernie Leahy, River Street Realty. Let's get you home.
Welcome to another episode of Manual Not Included. I'm Curtis Nash. I started this podcast to kind of bring awareness to children like my son who are, quote, special needs. I've been kind of telling the story of my family, but this week I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent because something came across my Facebook that our premier said last week. And I'm going to preface this by saying, you know, I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to politics. I'm not set in one group. I don't believe that one political party is the be-all, end-all. There's faults within all of them and good things within all of them. And I'm pretty level-headed. I'm definitely not a hypocrite. So whether it's conservative, liberal, NDP, Green, Communist, Socialist, Rhino, whatever your political affiliation is, it doesn't matter to me. Whoever would have said this comment that she said, I would have the exact same thoughts. I don't care what political party she's from. It's the fact it's what she said. Okay. So, now I'm going to read you the quote. And I also will inject here too. This is a 30-second snippet. So I don't know any of the pretext of this interview or the comments. I tried to find it online and I couldn't find it anywhere. I don't know if it got pulled or if the government pulled it. I have no idea, but I can't find it anywhere. Because I would love more context in what she's saying. But she starts off with saying, if I'm assuming about kids who, quote, act out in class. This is the exact quote that she said. If we need to bring in a school resource officer, police officer, social worker, a mental health professional to work with that individual and their families to start getting appropriate behavior, let's do it. Wonderful. That part of it is so fantastic. You have no idea. Anybody who has a kid like my son, it's so hard to find help. It's so hard to, not feel alone in this and to know there's somebody else out there going through the same thing. You just feel so isolated. So any kind of supports is just insane. You don't know the stress it relieves a parent. Anyway, continue. If that child needs to be removed from a school environment, okay, that's a little dicey, and have more one-on-one education in a specialized environment because they need to learn how to self-regulate, let's do that too. Okay, not bad. One-on-one, that sometimes happen, maybe not for a whole day, but definitely teach these kids one-on-one how to self-regulate. I know my son goes through some of that. Let's do that too. Wonderful. More of that. But that means more investment in education. That means more educational assistance, not necessarily teachers, more supports. Just saying. There's a cost. It's all fine and dandy to say all this, but there needs to be action as well. But those two things, pretty good. If this would actually come to fruition, wonderful. It's the next part that makes my hair stand on end a bit. Mild red flag, a little bit of a worry. We're sort of drawing a line that you can earn your way into inclusion, but you can earn your way out of it too. Okay. Earn your way out of inclusion. Now, what does that mean? I don't know if they're thinking about the worst case scenario children or if they're thinking of a more mild case of a disruption in the classroom. Are these kids who are, being physically violent and threatening to other children or the teachers or the staff? Or are these kids like maybe my kid who maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks during a day might need half an hour to himself because something is too overwhelming for him? I don't know. That's the problem with this statement. It's so broad that being a parent of a child who this category can clearly fit into is worrisome. That statement is worrisome. You can earn your way out of inclusion. The worst thing you could do for a kid like my son is to have him by himself all day or just stick him in a corner away from just regular activities and regular school. That would be the worst possible thing. You have no idea how bad that would be for any of these kids. They don't learn anything then. They don't learn how to be a part of society. They don't learn the social skills they need to succeed. All any parent wants for their child is to set them up for success in adulthood. That's all any of us want. Whether it's, I hate using the word normal. I'm not even going to say normal, quote, a normal kid. No. Most kids are, almost every kid is normal, okay? I would say a regular learning environment over somebody who needs a little bit of more help to what they say is self-regulate, okay? And if your child can go to school, if your biggest worry for your child is whether they get a C or an A, you know, you have no idea how lucky you are. Like, if your child was just lazy for a few months and went from a B to a C and you tell them to pick up their grades and they just have to do that extra work in, you know, I just think that'd be the greatest thing if that was the only worry with your child. That would just be fantastic. That would make my decade if I could have that news. It doesn't happen for every kid, though. So when you put things out there like this, it's definitely worrisome. You know, I can almost chalk it up to, you know, put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You know, I've heard it from former coworkers where a lady was going off around me saying how, you know, there's a kid in her son's class that is disruptive sometimes. And, you know, why does that kid need to be in the classroom? Because if he's disrupting the whole class, now I don't know the degree of it, but I just kind of wanted to say politely, I would never be angry about it, say, you would never in a million years say that if it was your kid. Never. And I wish more people thought of it from that point of view. Like, have you ever reached out to the parent? Ask what's going on? You don't know what the parents are like. You have no idea what they're going through. You have no idea what that kid's going through. Granted, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but there are parents who have kids like these and they don't care. They're like, whatever, too much work for me to do, because it's a lot of work as a parent as well. More for the child. I'm not going to try to pat myself on the back, but it's definitely a lot of work for the parent as well. So there are some parents who just don't care. You know, there are some parents like myself and my wife. We care a lot, but we're also not wealthy. We don't have money to just throw around. I wish I could just have all this money in the bank and whatever my son needs, he gets the best. Are there programs in the schools? Of course there are. There are. Has he gone through them? He has. He's gotten some one-on-one help. He's right now in a kind of a specialized class that we have in the city. I'll talk about that later on in a different episode, where it's a smaller group, more concentrated to teach these kids how to regulate with their ADHD or whatever they have. which is wonderful. That's what these kids need. That's one of the biggest tools they could use. And there is so many wonderful people in the school system. I can't even begin to tell you who actually care. So we went out to try to find this help. And we did find it. And it's hard to find sometimes, like I said, but there's some good people in the school system that will help you out. And we have to pay for a lot of it out of pocket as well. It's not all funded. And it can be pricey, counselors, if you need specialized occupational therapists, there's one downtown here, but that's not free as well for the best. And there are funding programs out there as well. Like you can go through a disability tax credit through the federal government. You can do that. And they can help you out, but you have to be able to prove from doctors, psychiatrists, whatever, that your child has a specific problem that you would need help with. Or provincially, I think it's called FSCD funding. Now, provincially, this is a provincial problem. I'm holding up this sheet from our Premier of Alberta who said this, and she wants to have all these supports, great. But I don't know if most families are privy to this, the FSCD funding. We applied for it over a year ago, and I don't think our case file has even been looked at because there's such a backlog of cases. Over a year so far. So you want to try to add more supports to a system that is already on a gigantic backlog to get into. If they can do this, hey, that would, like I said, that would make my decade if this could come to fruition. But right now, everything's on a backlog. And I don't know if it's going to take another year, to get our case looked at. But anybody with who's a parent with a kid, what's 2 years in your child's life? As an adult, it feels like nothing. Nothing changes for you in 2 years, personally. Time just flies by as an adult. How much does your kid change from 5 to 7, 7 to 9, 11 to 13, 13 to 15, 15 to 17? How much does your kid change? How much does their brain work, their brain develop? That's 2 years, up to potentially 2 years, even a year, that some parents couldn't get any help. That's like not teaching your kid anything in class, maybe taking him out of school for a year or two, putting him back in and be like, hey man, figure it out. Like, you just can't do stuff like that. So that's where I get frustrated with the whole, I hopefully all these aren't like, oh, your child's a problem, here's the bill that'll cost you to whatever, and if you can't pay for it, then, well, here's another classroom where they can sit here and play on their computers for the school day. That's my biggest fear. Like, and I said, if you're a parent who can afford the best, all the power to you, but unfortunately there's a majority of us who just can't, and the wording of the earn your way out of inclusion, every child deserves the best that we can give them, from the worst kid to the best kid, to the ones who need a lot of help, to the ones who need a little help. That's my personal opinion. And whatever we can do as a society to help them, I would love to. But that includes, compassion, maybe seeing things from a different point of view, government funding, unfortunately, and in a perfect world, 80% of this statement is wonderful. But we don't live in a perfect world. So I really wish our premier would sometimes think before she says things like this, because in an already stressful environment, when as a parent you worry about your child every day, I'm not saying people who don't worry about their kids every day, but when your child has problems, quote, self-regulating, trust me, you're a little more worried than most parents on a daily basis. This just adds fuel to the fire. So, maybe just have a plan, an actual plan before saying a statement. And if you can agree with me, right on. If you don't agree with me, you're more than entitled to your opinion. And if you could reach out, leave a comment underneath the video. Doesn't bother me whatsoever. I'll read them. Maybe I'll discuss them on the next podcast. We'll see. But that's all I got to say for this week. So we'll see you next time.
Hey, this is Brian again, and I'd like to ask you to do a favor. We can't do this work without people like you, so if you can, please like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends about Bring Back the Porch.